We just got into the new month of December, and what that means for food trucks is opportunities for catering. We can do corporate catering and private catering and office parties and all kinds of neat things that happen in December. So let's talk a little bit about what it takes to be successful when you do your catering, so that way you can make a bunch of money. Welcome to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. My name is Bill Moore. I am a food truck business coach, author of 5 food truck vending books, including Food Truck 101 and Food Truck 201. This podcast is all about helping you start and grow your food truck business. Table Needs welcomes you to listen in as Christian and Tracy, co-owners of Restless Coffee, spill the beans on their debut year in the food truck scene, uncover the secrets behind their secret menu, how they continually provide stellar customer service, and why building a strong community following is so important. Click the link in the episode description to watch the video for free. Last night, on Monday, December the 4th, I gave a 2-hour masterclass on catering. So today I'm going to go over just some of the tips that I gave those folks last night so you guys can have an opportunity to make good money with your caterings. The first thing you want to understand is you're going to have to plan a menu. You do that with the client. You're going to have to understand your equipment needs, because there's going to be some equipment you may not have, so where are you going to find it? Are you going to buy it, or are you going to rent it? You have to understand time management so that you can get the catering done by its appointed time, but then you also got to make sure you're not stressing yourself out, putting everything off to the last second. And of course, catering, it's super important that you understand food safety and food hygiene, because you can absolutely destroy your business by setting out food that makes somebody sick. It's very difficult for us when we're in an environment where we're catering to monitor so much and so many different types of food. And then you got to have a catering contract. I'll go over some of the things that are important on a catering contract. And then I'll talk about how you can price the catering for profitability. When we're talking about menu planning, you're going to be talking to the client. You got to get the event details. You absolutely got to understand what type of event. Is it formal? Is it casual? What's going on as far as the theme? Because that'll help dictate what kind of food you're going to have. The guest count. This is an important number. You cannot make any kind of a quote without having a guest count. And you need to make them commit to a minimum guest count. If they say, well, I don't know how many's coming, I need a number. I can't give you a quote until I know how many people are coming. You want to feel them out for a budget. How much are they willing to spend? Now, this is where you can actually save yourself a bunch of time, because if they give you a head count of, I got 100 people coming and I've got a $500 budget, you can very gently explain to them that that means you're spending $5 a head. I don't think you can even get that food at McDonald's. So you're certainly not going to be able to get it from me. A lot of people don't equate how much it costs when they go to do a catering, and they shouldn't, because it's not their job. It's not their business. So don't get upset when somebody says, head count of 100 people and I got a $500 budget. As far as they're thinking, $500 worth of food is a whole bunch of food. And it is. But it's not going to feed 100 people. But they haven't made that math because they aren't in the business like we are. So be patient. You also got to find out where they're going to be holding the catering. Is it on private property? Is it on their property? Is it on the job office? And do you need permissions? If it's a wedding, you're obviously going to have a venue somewhere where you've got to get permission. Getting that permission has to fall on the client's shoulders, not yours. All you're there to do is cook and serve. And then you also got to find out if they know of any guest preferences as far as dietary restrictions or any kind of preferences. And this is all just in the menu planning stages. Then you got to ask them what type of service do they want. Are they looking for a seated meal, a buffet? Do they want food stations? And what a food station is you're going to group your foods together in different areas. Like you may have all your meats over here. Then in another area, you're going to have all your vegetables. Another area is going to be desserts. What that does is it spreads people out. So there's not one big long line attacking one set of a buffet station. Is it going to be a cocktail party? Is it going to be a picnic style? And what that means is your food truck rolls up and you serve the food out of your food truck window like normal, and then the people take that and go sit down and eat at some types of tables that are already set up. If it's a seated meal or if it's a cocktail party, you need a lot more servers. If it's going to be a buffet, then you need a lot more people that are going to be attending those particular stations, keeping them neat and clean and then filled up with food. So it tells you what kind of employees you're going to need. And then I want you to honestly answer this question before you commit to doing any catering. Can you realistically pull off what they're asking you to do? Don't let the dollar signs influence you, because you could take on a bigger task in a catering than you are actually capable of doing, and then it ruins your reputation for a number of years to where you don't get any caterings at all. Now, one last thing on menu planning. You want to be able to offer a variety of options. You may need to suggest a sell and let them know, hey, you really need to have 2 vegetables. You need to have 1 more dinner roll. You need to have desserts. But you want to make sure that the options include a variety of flavors. You're looking at sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and umami flavors. That way it hits all of the palate. You want to think about textures. A watery texture like a soup, a firm texture, a crunchy texture, creamy or chewy. All of those textures add interest to the meal. So you don't want to have a smoky appetizer, a smoky dessert, and then a smoky entree, because now you're getting a smoke on smoke on smoke, and it becomes boring to people. Suddenly the food all tastes the same. So mix in the flavors, mix in the textures, and then think about colors as far as the presentation goes. Consider those dietary restrictions, and then choose dishes that you can create that are easy to transport and serve. It is pointless for you to try to do something just to appease the client if you cannot pull it off. Don't make it harder on yourself than it's already going to be. The more people you got to serve, the more conscious you got to be of how this food is going to transport, because you'll have several pans of the exact same product. And again, don't forget to suggest a sell and make sure that the menu that you're going to deliver is a very well-rounded menu. 2 things to think about. Presentation, it matters, because a spread of food that's gorgeous is going to get more people wanting you to be their caterer when they start to have events. And then the other thing to remember is you got to provide excellent guest service, because again, you want those 100 people that are coming to this party to be so impressed that when they go to do a graduation or some other type of celebration, they want you to come and serve the food. So after menu planning, once you've got a good handle on what kind of food you're going to be serving, now you got to think about the equipment. And if you own the equipment you need to be able to produce the food that's on the menu, or you're going to have to rent something. So you got to look at each item. So you got to think about, how is it stored, how is it prepped, how is it cooked, how is it held, and how is it served? And do you have everything you're going to need for each one of those different steps? You want to make a list of the equipment, the pans, the utensils, and make a note of what you don't already have. And here's a little bit of homework for you. I want you to go out tomorrow or go out later on today after you're done listening to this and find a local rental service for equipment, tents, tables, chairs, cooking equipment, holding equipment, the kind of things that you don't already have. Because I can guarantee you at some point you do this business long enough, somebody's going to ask you to cater something and you don't have enough equipment. And I'd rather you be prepared now than you go, I don't know, I'll have to get back with you, because you look very unprofessional. Once you've got a good handle on what the equipment is you're going to need, now you need to start looking at the time management. You got to prioritize tasks. You want to avoid multitasking. While it seems like a really good idea to multitask, all it ends up doing is decreases your overall productivity, and then it increases errors. And you don't want a lot of errors, because errors typically mean burnt food. And if you have a lot of burnt food, now you just increase the cost. You want to set realistic time goals, and you want to break down those large tasks into smaller, manageable steps. Again, with time goals, delegate tasks. Who is doing what? And then they've got those time goals. Like, how long does it take to wash and wrap a case of potatoes you're going to use for baking? How long does it take to process a case of lettuce to get it ready to do salads? You got to have time goals. Otherwise, your staff is just going to expand the work to meet whatever time you've given them. And then you'll end up finding in the last half hour you do way more work than you did in the 4 hours preceding it. You don't want to be in that position. And then don't be afraid to say no. It's okay for you to say no to additional requests. The client calls you up and says, hey, Uncle Joe's coming and he can't eat this, so I need you to prepare one additional type of food. You can say no, because they should have already thought about that in the initial conversations. You can't let yourself get overwhelmed because of their poor planning. Now, you want to do what you can to accommodate them. So instead of you creating a whole nother course, you can say, hey, well, I can't do that. I don't have sufficient time to shop and prep and cook, but I'll be happy to create one meal for Uncle Joe so that way he's taken care of. And we'll make him feel really, really special. You got to work out that compromise. And then along with the food, you got to think about food safety. Now, some of this should be obvious to you. You want to buy from reputable suppliers. The thing about catering is you may be buying food you've never ever bought before. And that's okay. You want to make sure, though, that it's coming from somebody that is reputable. When you go to do the prepping and the cooking and all of the preparation, you want to make sure you're keeping logs of everything. We're talking about temperature logs. You know, this frozen food is really frozen. Here's the temperature when we got it. This refrigerated food is really underneath the 41-degree threshold. You want to keep those records because there are more illnesses from catering than there are at a restaurant because the food sits often without the refrigeration or the heating that's required to keep it safe. So make sure you're doing everything you possibly can to show that we're keeping the food as safe as we possibly can at every step. You want to make sure you avoid cross-contamination. It's real simple when you got a big volume of food to cook that you start to shortcut. You don't wash and rinse the knives. You don't wash and rinse the cutting boards. You don't clean the counter in between changing meats or going from a meat to a vegetable or going from vegetables to bread. You want to keep your standards extremely high, just like you do when you're in your daily service on your food truck. You want to make sure that you're cooking all of your food to a safe internal temperature and then provide proof. So you're documenting every single pan of mashed potatoes that you cooked. What's that temperature? What's the temperature of the next pan? What's the temperature of the next pan? Every single pan has proof that it was at the proper temperature. Do the same for meats and proteins. Everything's got to have a temperature, and you got to prove it because you don't want to find yourself being accused of making somebody sick without having documentation to back up that, hey, I did my job. Make sure that you and your employees are wearing the proper clothes. You got on chef's aprons or coats. You're wearing gloves while you're handling food. And then make sure your staff understands if they're sick with certain symptoms, they got to report those symptoms to you immediately. You cannot take a chance when you're serving food to that many people. Follow storage and handling practices, the proper storage and handling practices. You want to cover your food to make sure it's not getting pests or dust or any other contaminants in it. Because it's real simple just to run out of the food truck carrying something to put it on a buffet and it not be covered. Keep everything covered during transportation. Discard food that's been kept outside of the proper cooling temperatures or the proper hot holding. And certainly throw away stuff if it shows signs of spoilage. Got to make sure you train your staff. Even if it's a serving staff that you're only hiring for the evening, they got to understand what their responsibilities are. Do not assume that the temp agency has sent you people that actually know anything about food at all. All right, tomorrow I'm going to go over what should be on a contract for a catering. And then also how you make sure you make money when you do a catering. Thank you so much for listening to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. If you're finding all the information helpful to your food truck business, please become a monthly supporter of the podcast. Just hit the support button or follow the link in the description. Every little bit does help keep us going. Join our Facebook group. It's called Food Truck Training. We have a whole bunch of awesome members at all different levels, from brand new beginners to decades-old veterans. They've all got your back when it comes to helping you with your food truck. And again, thank you for listening. Come back tomorrow because I got plenty more to say when it comes to helping you and your food truck business grow.